Hello, and welcome back to Learn Synthesis with Pure Data. This is Series 2, Episode 8. In this episode, our main mission will be to create a scrub feature that allows you to, in real time, jump to different portions of the virtual tape looper that we've been making. In addition to that, I do want to, and this will be the first thing that we're going to look at, we're going to look at a potential thing in the way that I've been patching this that could be an issue. And I notice it crop up with like 2 of the 14 assignments that I received at the end of episode 6, which was week 6 in the course that I'm teaching. I had made the episode 7 before I received these 2 assignments, and so I wasn't able to address it then. But we're going to look at it now, because it has to do with a feature that is the main core of our counting mechanism and our playback mechanism. And it's something that that is going to pose a little bit of an interesting thing about, what's actually causing it. And it's one of those things where it hasn't happened to everybody. And so I basically have an idea of a good solution and a better practice of putting things together. And it all has to do with number boxes. Okay, so here you are. We're looking at a student submission, and this is one of the 2 submissions that had this issue. I'm going to record some audio here again, and I'm going to make it something that is not just me talking, because it might confuse you hearing me talking to explain things and hearing it playing in the background or something. So I'm just going to make the sound. Okay, now this is going back to episode 6, but the same issue could still be happening in episode 7 patching, but I've only seen it in like 2 out of 14 people, and here's what it is. First of all, let's say we want to play it with looping. This does not happen except when looping is turned on. And so I turn on looping and I press play. Okay, so you see where it gets to the end, the rewind starts flickering and we don't hear it actually loop. Now, it took me a while to find what the problem was, if you could call it that, because the patching was really, it was accurate and correct. But we open up the inside here and we're going to go to PD playback. Things may be positioned a little differently than in mine, but I even looked for, with the signal flow going right to left in PD, top down, right to left, I didn't find any issues that would have been causing. So even though things are located somewhat differently than the way I had them, it's not too different, and it shouldn't be anything that causes problems. But needless to say, I looked around at the rewind mechanism here for looping, and I was like, what's going on? And this is before we added the sliders to say where the start and the finish were. So this is just supposed to loop from the end back to the beginning. And I was looking at the counter here. It's at 0. So it looked like it rewound. But in just testing things out, I decided to pop in a number box and hook it up to the right outlet of Moses, because something is making the rewind bang over and over and over again. when I did that, I see the counter is still going up out of Moses. And so since this is the right outlet of Moses that says, okay, things have reached the duration. They've reached the end of the playback. Everything's coming out of here, and this is where it's executing the rewind. And in this episode 6 version, it's basically saying, okay, if loop is on, the select box bangs this stuff to happen. Somehow, and I checked the patching here. The patching was fine. Moses is still going up, but the counter going into Moses is at 0. I'm like, what? Well, look at this. If we delete this cable, now all of a sudden the number box is not being connected to Moses, which is its outlet. Like it's supposed to be on this by that point. We actually see it display. What I really did is just cut the feed to Moses, so Moses is no longer sensing that it's above, the duration mark, so it's no longer executing this. But we could see, this counter is still going. It's not being rewound. So what I did was this. I deleted the number box, and I hooked up this directly. Whoops. There we go. We're looping again. Now, in order to get rid of that rewind sound, we need to hook this up here too. Now let me shut this off so I can talk. There we go. Basically, I just hooked up the patch cable straight to Moses rather than going through a number box. That means the counting is being done here and the rewind message that's coming from there. And I was like, okay, so the number box was slowing it down, but it wasn't on my patch. It wasn't on like 14 other students' patches. But there was one other student that also had this happening. The other student that had this happening did the assignment in PD-LORC. But I know there's another student in the class that's using PD-LORC, and there was no problem. At the same time, this student who we're looking at right now did it in PD Vanilla. I don't know which version of PD Vanilla. I can only assume it's probably, one of the more recent ones. But I've come to this conclusion. You can always hook up a number box like this. Like the reason why I put these number boxes in is to demonstrate concepts, because I want people to see, okay, the numbers are going up and stuff, and see what number values they're at. But you can always put in number boxes just to the left of the thing that you want to read out, but without being between its connection and the next place it's going. So that way the number box wouldn't be able to slow things down. And as we'll see now, okay, so now the fact that this has happened to 2 students out of 14, that basically I should say there's 2 students that this happened to and 12 that it didn't. And then there's me where it didn't happen to me either. And it's not a PD-LORC thing, as I said. So it's, all this patching should work in both anyway. But so basically what I've decided is that would be a good approach to take. Now, I don't need to save this. I am just going to load up my patches and pick up where we left off. Now, this will be going, we don't need to save. Don't need to save. Because we're going to pick up where we left off at the end of week 7. So let me go to my patches and my documents. Sorry for this delay, but it won't be long. Oh, and it's good to actually just show I keep all my episodes on file, so I could go back to where things were in all the previous episodes. I'm going to take episode 7, Control A, copy all this stuff. And for my students, it's probably a good idea to keep copying all the modules that you have and putting them in the next folder, unless you're keeping a track history here, because we will be putting a lot of these modules back together into the modules patch. Right now we're just working on the virtual tape looper, so we only need the tape looper PD file, the modules PD file, and the audio folder, even if it's empty, because when you record to it or open and save, it's going to be looking here, and if this audio folder isn't here, it won't work. So in any case, let's pick up where we left off in episode 7 and move forward. And so I'm going to do this adjustment here, because mine's been working fine. But this could be a potential issue. So here, what's coming into this, just to be careful about removing it. Okay, the counting mechanism is coming into it, but we can hook that up directly now to Moses. These two rewind patches are going into it, because that helps get rid of that rewind noise, among other things, to get the 0, or even here where our left slider says where the beginning of the loop is. Either one of these rewind functions, either going back to 0, which is this one, or going back to the rewind beginning location, which is this one, either one needs to be patched directly into Moses, as well as the right inlet of the float box here. These are actually going into the right inlet. This Metro is banging the left inlet. But it's got to go there, and it's got to go here. So this gets zeroed out, and then this counter continues from wherever point Moses is at as well. So anyway, I am going to then hook the float box up here so we can still see this display, because in this episode, it might be good to be able to see this, because we're going to be scrubbing and basically moving around on the fly in the patch. Now down here, we have another number box. I haven't seen any problems with it, but you know what? We might as well do the same thing. That's if we even need this. I mean, a lot of times you could just go without number boxes. But when you're debugging, it's always nice to have them so you can see what numbers are coming out of different things, and if they're the right numbers and the right sort of thing, you know. Just like when I debugged the problem that students were having by hooking a number box up to the right outlet of Moses. Now, I've been thinking about the way this thing functions and if there's any way to streamline this a bit. Now that we have an endpoint slider for looping, I was thinking, do we really need duration? But yeah, because you might want, for example, to be playing and looping between different regions you select, like maybe you select to just loop this part here in some audio, and then turn off the loop function and let it play to the end. You might want to do that. So that is still good to have. But I was thinking there was a more efficient way of doing it, and that would be the following. I'm going to disconnect the Moses here that's for the loop and the Moses that's for recognizing we're at the end. Because you see, when it recognizes we're at the end, the only thing it's going to do is stop. It's not going to loop at that point. looping is judged by the slider that we have. And if you leave that all the way at the end, that slider will loop from the end if you want to. So the whole point is I can disconnect this from our chain here. All right. Because it's receiving its information from that chain after this Moses. But I think a more efficient way of doing it would be the only time this Moses needs to receive information is when things are beyond the loop setting, the right loop slider, which means the end of the loop. When things are beyond that, and at the same time that the loop function is turned off. So we have a select 0, 1 here. And what we can do with this is say, no, we're not going to do it from there, but we're going to do it from here. We have a trigger bang. We're going to make a trigger bang float. Now make sure this cable's still connected. The bang is going to still go out here, but we're going to take the number that's coming out of Moses. See, Moses is putting out the number of what it's receiving that is above this number here. Anything above above or equal to the loop endpoint. So that comes out here. We just are making it into a bang so it executes something. But at the same time, if we put an F here, we can get that number. And so that number that's being being put out the outlet of Moses will come out here and then go into this Moses. Okay. And then this Moses, if it's basically gets to the point where we're at the end of the clip, which is the duration, that means the end of the timing of the clip, it's going to bang here to see if it's, we don't need that anymore, because when it gets to the end, it's because this thing has not, has not gone off. But if this is set at the end, this might also say, am I at the end? Let's leave the select and stuff together. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Although we are, by doing this, making things a bit more efficient, I believe. Okay, so we're going to slide this down. And then maybe just move this over here in line with that. It's a little bit cleaner patching. Okay, so this stuff still goes through. You got to connect that up. But right now, this can be off the main chain because things don't need to go through this Moses in this chain. That means things will get here faster. They don't go through this Moses to get here. I think that makes things a little bit more efficient. Okay. So anyway, the next thing I was looking at that I think would be a good improvement before we get to the scrubbing, which will be next, is this here, rewind send. This is for when we get to the end. If loop is on, it rewinds to the beginning. Well, what functions do we need to have happen? Well, this turns off the play button, but this also stops it. I don't believe we need to play stop. Remember, in episode 7, we got rid of that stuff because that's almost like stopping it twice, because as soon as you're sending to the play button the 0 message, the play button then sends that message out. It sends out what it receives in its inlet. That's the way graphic objects work. And we're talking about the play button. Oh, let me minimize this. We don't need to see that. It should be right behind here. I'm cluttered again. I should be using the workspaces like I did last time, I guess. But anyway, that's this play button here. So it receives the 0 message to turn it off, and then that 0 message could come right back out it here to rewind send, because that's the message it's receiving. It's receiving from that play button. So we're going to take this out and we're going to test it just to make sure. Now I can raise this back up again. There we go. So we take that out, and then, oh, I'm sorry, I confused myself there. I was saying about the play receive. The play send is actually what is going to send a 0 to up here, play send. If it's a 1, play start. So play start gets executed here from that toggle. I was jumping ahead of myself when I said the rewind. The rewind comes from the rewind button out there. So all we need to do is, just like with this play button, is send to the rewind button. But in order to send it to the rewind bang, basically, we want to make this the receive. So it receives it. Now we can eliminate an extra bang here. And remember, it only does this when it gets to the end. It basically stops playback and rewinds it to the beginning for when you play again. Okay, so this is not like a pause function. This is when you press stop. You can add a pause function where basically all you have to do is send to the play receive to stop. But you're not going to have a pause function necessarily right at the end. You know, if it's gotten all the way to the end, there's no reason to pick up playing there. It might as well go back to the beginning. And that's what this is for. If you wanted to add a pause function, basically you just need to send a signal to play stop. Or you could have that thing send a signal to, the play button itself, which also will stop the playback. Okay, but we didn't add that yet, and I don't think we're going to. We're going to add a scrub. So now, what the scrub's going to do is basically feed in information here about where to jump to. Well, not to Metro, I'm sorry. It's going to be the float box here, where the float box is going to be told where to go. But I think to make it efficient, we're not only going to have it go into the float box. You see, the rewind function does that. And the rewind function that is involved in looping does that. The only thing hooked up to the left inlet is Metro. Everything else is going through the right. But at the same time, those rewind functions where you're jumping somewhere also need to go down here. So we're basically going to have a scrub function over here that will feed where we're at and have it go to here. But let's make our scrub slider first, also so you can understand more fully exactly what we're doing here. We're running out of real estate here. I think to make things quicker, I am just going to make this smaller. Go to its properties. We need about 20 pixels more space here. So its vertical size, I'm going to make it just 40. Ooh, that'll be a bit thin, but that's okay. What I'm going to do is just take one of these sliders and duplicate it because it's the right length. The reason why I make these sliders this length is so you can see in the waveform kind of where you're at, and then line the slider up with that position in the waveform to make your loop points. So let's put you at the top. I think when I do the next series, which will be series 3, I am going to be making modules, and there'll be different style videos where I'll be showing, basically the modules will be made, and then I give tours around them and explain concepts as I go. Because now that I have this series and series 1 that really help people with the basics and getting things down, I think it's becoming less important to, patch in real time and explain as I patch, because, people will have already had some of the fundamentals down. Okay, so I'm just making sure these ends are lined up. I'm going to change this one's color, and maybe the font sizes would be a good thing to change. I'm not going to take time in this video to change the font sizes, but you can do that. That's the positioning of the label. Here's the size of the font of the label. For example, I'll say maybe make it 10 pixels. That'll take up less space. But also, I'm seeing in this series what the vertical height of my modules should be. But anyway, we need different symbols here. $0 underscore scrub underscore send. $0 underscore scrub underscore receive. Okay, and I can use a different color for it. There we go. There we go. So, like, for example, also you can change the positioning of these labels. And, well, might as well. Let me do this. Let me make it a size of 10. And its Y offset is -10. That means above, believe it or not, in PD, when you're positioning things, this is above. Let's just cut off an extra 2 pixels from that and make it -8. There we go. You see how that's fitting better now? I can also make that same X offset position -8 for this, the scrub slider. Oh, we need to rename this. This is our scrub slider. So I'm going to call it scrub. Okay, and now waveform. I wonder if you can edit the label of an array. Here's its name. No. Then over here where you can size it, it doesn't say anything about label size. So it looks like we're kind of stuck with that. Let me go here to the left slider, and the magic numbers were -8. And the font size of -10. Now, I'm not going to do any more of this. This is just a good way of showing you how you could change things and stuff. Or I could make it wider and have the labels appear over here and stuff like that. Although you can't change the position of the array thing, at least not in any way I know of. There might be a way of sending it a message to do it. What is this? Yeah, let me do, isn't there a cleanup feature here? Edit, cleanup, tidy up. So we're graphically kind of glitching now. Let me hit Control S to close that. I still have it down here, the modules patch. There we go. Yeah. This might be one of those things where you close and reopen it, it'll be fine, but we'll check that at the end. So anyway, right now, let's not worry about it. All right, so this new scrub slider. We're going to have to go here to load bang. Here, I'm going to go into run mode in that screen so I can left click on it. And here's where we have some of our sliders already being set, like loop L and loop R are being positioned so that when the patch opens, you know, it's good to visually see the left and the right, shall we say, the start and the end of the loop positions moved, where this one's all the way left and this one's all the way right. I had moved it since then, so it's not there now. But this scrub slider is going to be like that. We should have an initial position for it. I think it's going to end up being the beginning, just like the loop, because that makes the most sense. The scrub slider is something we use when playing with this thing to jump to different locations. But it should be positioned at the beginning to start with. So what we can do here is use the same stuff from loop L. Oh, this is loop R. We don't want to use that. Nope, 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 nope. We want to use the same stuff from loop L and just send it to Control-1. Oh, it had made it. Send $0 underscore scrub underscore receive. So that slider will have a range of 0 to 1 to start, and it will go to 0. So it'll be all the way to the left, just like the beginning of our loop region. So if we do this now, by just hitting this bang up here, that's how it's going to look when the patch is open. And you see, yeah, the right slider is all the way at the end. That's the good starting positions. Now we're going to go into PD calculations. Remember last time where we added this feature here, where the loop R slider, which is the end of the patch, you know. Oh boy, shows that one again. And it's blanked out. Basically, this slider right here at the end. This one, we want it to have a range of 0 to whatever the duration of the recording is. And then we want to set it by default at that end duration. We want to send the same range to loop L, which we're already doing, but we want it positioned at 0. So after someone records, these things will always go to their respective positions at the end and at the beginning. Scrub, we can leave it set to the beginning, but we also need to give it its range. So what I'm going to do is the same thing I did in the other patch. The other sub patch is we're just going to add a send here to $0 underscore scrub underscore recv. So that way it's being treated like it's got to receive the 0 to position it in the 0 position, and it's got to receive this range message too. Now let's move these over so the patching's a little bit more clear. The range message needs to go to here because we got to give it its range. Range sets in any of these sliders what their min and max values are. It should be 0 and whatever the duration of the thing is. Now, since we didn't record anything yet, there's no duration yet. But as soon as we have one, all three of these sliders will have that set as their max. But that's different than what its actual value currently is. For this one and the start of the loop L slider, we want them to be at 0 to start. Okay, and so that takes care of that. I'm going to record something in just to show that. Oh. Hold on here. I didn't maximize my space enough. There we go. Move you down. What I'm trying to line up is the ends of the sliders. The left portion of the slider will probably hang over the table a little bit. So I did have a little extra space there. And so here, line you up at the table end. These seem to be pretty much in line with it. Okay, there we go. Alrighty, there we go. Now, what we got to do is put the feature in. Well, yeah, I was going to record first. Okay, here's the test recording for the scrub feature. So from PD calculations, the thing that we just changed, look in the properties here. Its range is 0 to 3.7. And you can see its slider is all the way to the left, meaning that it received the 0 message to say this is where you start. Same thing as loop L. But now, this can be used to move us around. I'm going to go into PD playback and set that up. And I'm going to do it in a couple stages here. The first stage will be just to put us there. Okay. And I'm going to say here, receive $0 underscore scrub underscore send, because we're receiving from the scrub slider. And it's going to go to the right inlet of float here. And it needs to go to Moses down here as well to make sure it immediately gets there. Basically, this is the counting mechanism. You want to put this in place for the next count, and then you want it to immediately go there. Now, we're going to hear and see what happens with that. Oh, one other thing we want to do is take the slider, go to its properties. It'd be nice if we didn't have to just drag it around, but actually tap on it with a mouse click. Over here, this is steady on click, meaning you click on it and you drag the slider to where you want it. Jump on click means you click on the slider and the marker of the slider will just go to wherever you want. So let's play and loop so we don't run out of stuff. Okay, here's the test recording for the scrub feature. Okay, here's the test recording for the scrub feature. Okay, recording for the scrub feature. Okay, here's the test recording for the scrub. Here's the test recording for the scrub feature. Okay, here it's giving us an interesting effect, but it's not actually putting us there. Alrighty, and that's where we're going to have to look at our number boxes. So in order to kind of see both things, I'm going to move this over here, cover up the PD window. I want to see this, and then I want to see PD playback. Okay, they're both fitting on the screen fairly well at the same time. So I'm going to look at our number box right here and see what's happening. Now, we just stopped somewhere. It should just pick up right where we stopped. So I'm going to press play again over here. Here's the test recording for the scrub feature. Okay, here's the test recording for the scrub feature. Okay, here's the test recording for the scrub feature. Okay, here's the test recording for the scrub feature. Okay, here's the test recording for the scrub feature. Okay, here's the test recording for test recording for the scrub feature. Okay, here's the test recording for the scrub feature. Okay, now, so it's not working the way we want it to. When it goes in the right inlet, it's the next bang out of Metro that bangs it through. But I have it going here first, so it should bang that through and catch it up, but it's not doing that. Now, since I've made this before, I'm thinking, let's hook this up to the left inlet of float, where basically this number comes through as soon as we scrub there, it goes there. All right, so let's try that out. Okay, here's the test recording for test recording. Here's the test recording for the scrub feature. Test recording. Okay, here's the test scrub feature. Okay, here's the test recording for. So that's what we needed to do. Somehow being put here on hold and float, even only for 100 milliseconds before it gets banged around. Somehow it was just not, it wasn't going to that location and sticking with it. It was almost like it would just squeal a little bit, but this thing would keep going. This immediately puts it there. Somehow that wasn't necessary with the rewind function, probably because with all these rewind functions, whether we're looping or we go to the end and rewind, we're stopping playback. So it's like playback stops and then we start up again. It might be automatic like in the loop function, but it stops it for enough time that this number takes hold in the right inlet and it goes there. Now, so if you want to have a squealy scrub feature that goes like that, it sounds like rewinding the tape back to the certain position, you can go ahead with that. But I am going to show you how you can do it without having the scrub squeal like that. But we're going to disconnect these two patch cables to do it, because we're going to have to do things differently. We're going to have to use what we have over here for rewinding and stuff. In fact, I am going to look at this. I'm not going to copy it directly. I'm trying to see how much of this I would actually use over there. All right, here we go. Let's do this. Will copy it. Control D. And when you do that, make sure you click on blue highlighted stuff to drag it. Otherwise, you're going to leave those things piled on top of each other. Now, let me see. Let's position this right. Okay. Now, we definitely want to have a play receive being sent where it stops play. And when that play receive stops, remember it also, that play button goes off and it also sends to here that play has stopped and that play stop needs to be initiated, which does the muting. And remember last time we added to the muting the delay of where it's not really a delay, but it's a slope. It's a ramp going down to 0 to mute and the ramp coming back from 0. And each of those actions takes place over the time of $0 playback speed. That's how quickly they both will happen. So basically this stops playback and over 100 milliseconds it ramps down to 0 and we're muted. And then that's when we can jump over. I'm going to change this middle bang to an F. Because remember, what's coming out of scrub is a float. It's a number saying where we're scrubbing to. So that F is going to send us to where we want to go to. Now, this is the F that should go over here. I mean, this is the number that should go over here. Since playback is stopped, I'm going to put it in the right inlet of float. And since we need to get Moses there too quickly, we're going to put it into the left inlet of Moses. And then down here, this is where, over the time of playback speed, we ramp up again, but it's doubled, basically giving this 100 milliseconds to happen. The scrub goes in, and then over the next 100 milliseconds, we're ramping back up, like right here is where the one goes in to go to play receive to start playback again. Okay, so we're basically using our rewind feature, except instead of sending a 0 message from our loop rewind to the float box and to Moses, we're sending this number, a position in the overall waveform in seconds to where it should be. So let's give this a shot. I'm hitting Control S and saving. Here, I'm just going to move, because I've just put that patching in, let's give the scrub recording for the scrub. Okay, here's a test recording for the scrub feature. I didn't mean for that to happen. Basically, you touch it, you go there. Here's a test recording for the scrub feature. Okay, here's the test recording for the scrub feature. For the test recording, but it is the squealing feature. Okay, it is squealing, so what we should hear is like, we shouldn't hear that. Let me do something here. Well, first of all, we're also, let's see if we can get rid of the squealing first, and then we're going to have to make it so that you can't just bump the scrub button and it starts playing, unless play is on. And we could easily put some patching in here to make that happen. Okay, so, but let's see here. All right, we got our 0, our play, receive. Or how about this? What if we put this in the left inlet of float? I was figuring we could put it in the right inlet because that worked for the rewinds. It's a test recording for the scrub. Test recording for the scrub feature. Yeah, of course that wouldn't fix it. I should have known better. If you're squealing, having it go into the right inlet. Let's change this back to the right inlet. If it's squealing, going back into the left, in the right inlet, it definitely will in the left. The whole point is we don't want it going there too fast. We need enough time to stop this thing and mute it. Now, for this thing, we don't need to send a 0 to play receive to make the play feature just turn off temporarily. We don't need that. We can go back here directly to our send, play, stop. We don't need it going to, in other words, we're going to the playback toggle to 0 it out. We don't need that. The user doesn't need to see that happen. It's nice on a rewind or something, but not in this case where you're scrubbing from one place to another. Basically, instead of going back out to that toggle and then back to here and then to here, basically what's happening is we're going straight to here where we mute the audio output. And so we're basically cutting down the number of places this thing is going. How come? What is this doing sitting here? Let me get rid of that. I don't know why I still had that there. So yeah, so that mutes over 100 milliseconds. This needs to delay. Oh, I guess, now I just have to make another one. All right, hold on. Let's move this down. Because while it's muting, remember it takes 100 milliseconds for it to fade out to 0 or whatever the playback speed is. Underscore playback speed. We need it to delay that long before it sends this number through. So what we're going to do is make a float box where we store our scrub time, like the time that the playback's going to go to. And we're going to delay. I'll put in the default of 100 milliseconds, but playback speed will override that in case you change the playback speed. And this will bang out this number here that will then go into the places we were going before. Right inlet of float and the left inlet of Moses. So that's the thing. It wasn't delaying going there until things were muted. We want it to delay we can get rid of this cable now here. Because right now we want this float just going into the float box to be stored. And it gets banged at this point in time, but we need to put another bang in here to actually make it happen. So let's do this. Just to have cleaner patching. Now, when you add an extra thing in the trigger like that, you have to move things over. This happens first. Then next, the float goes into the float box. And then here's where it gets banged out, but this bang goes to the delay. So it waits this amount of time before it bangs this out. And so in other words, the scrub won't happen until the mute's finished, because remember this is going down to here to mute things, and the muting takes place over playback speed amount of time. So once that's expired and things are actually fully muted, then we could put in the scrub time of where we're going. And then over here, since we waited 100 milliseconds for that, this shouldn't take 100 milliseconds to happen. So once again, this patching is fine, but instead of sending a 1 to the play receive, we're going to just send it to play start. Don't forget the $0 underscore play start. So that way, playback will start up again. After it's waited, whatever the playback speed time is, times 2 to allow all this to happen. And this actually gives us a little extra buffer zone. Okay? And it'll sound pretty instantaneously because 200 milliseconds to us is not a lot of time. So anyway, now this is gonna, let me press play. Okay, here's the test recording for the scrub feature. Here's the test recording for the scrub feature. Test recording the scrub. Test recording for the test recording for the test recording, test recording, recording for the scrub. There we go. We could scrub wherever we want. But now, we want to make sure that we are playing back. Otherwise, someone could just tap this in for the scrub feature. Okay, here's the test recording for the scrub feature. Okay, here's the test recording for the... To me, I guess, it's colored green like the play button. So it's like, maybe if you think of it that way, there's no problem with this just instantly just deciding, we're going to start playing. Okay, here's the test recording. Okay, here's the test recording. Okay, here's the test recording for the scrub. But then you can't stop it unless you hit play for the like twice. Scrub feature. Because basically I could have the play off. Here's the test recording for the scrub feature. And then I have to hit it twice to stop it. So no, let's put the check on it there. We're basically, and this will be the last bit of patching we have to do. But then I'm going to test out all features just to be thorough. Let's take this stuff and move you down. Right now, whenever someone touches the scrub button, it executes all this stuff that we made to have happen. But what we should have instead is a check on it. Once again, we could have this stored in a float box. All right, here's our number. Scrubs come in. Now, basically, it's like what we have over here, where Moses actually triggers a bang float here. Okay. Yeah. We do want this stored. Sorry. We do want this stored, but this will be further down, and we're going to have another thing stored. We're going to put here receive $0 play send. This is coming from the play button, and it's going to basically determine, are we on or off? So I'm going to make a float here. I just disconnected that. I know. That's because we're going to put something in between. So anyway, here we go. Float gets stored here. Now, when something comes out of here, we're going to trigger the float, the number that's coming out. That's the scrub value. We're going to allow that to pass through into the right inlet of this float box. But a bang will also happen here. I'm wondering, actually, maybe I should reverse these. T, B, F, because we want to make sure the number. Let me disconnect this now. Move this stuff over a little bit so it's out of the way. We want to make sure that this number arrives here and is here ready to be banged before, banging it out. But this is going to bang here, where this number, which is a 1 or a 0, it's whether the play button is on or not. And so we're going to make a select 1, 0, just to make the patching cleaner, where if playback is on, where it's going to bang out that outlet, the leftmost outlet, to this float. And so whatever the scrub number is coming from the slider that gets stored here we're going to allow it to come through. So it's stored in this float box anytime you move the scrub slider, but playback has to be on for it to receive the bang to put that number through. Otherwise, the number doesn't come through, nothing happens. When the play is off, it doesn't do anything. This outlet isn't connected to anything, nothing happens. So let's check it out. Play is not on. I can click scrub, nothing happens. Play is on. Okay, here's the test recording. Here's the test recording. Hey, here's the test recording. Here's the test recording. Here's the test recording. Here's the recording for the scrub feature. I just turned the loop off and we heard the rewind sound. And this will be why. Let's go here to PD playback. See, this is why I like to click around and just try things and see what's happening here. I'm sorry. PD playback. Remember, this is what ends it. You know, we've reached the duration. It's time to stop and go to the end. This is what's happening. This rewind needs to be delayed. Delay 100. I always like to put the default creation argument in. We're just delaying a bang, so this could be hooked up directly. And then in the right inlet, we'll put a receive. Playback speed, because as we change playback speed, it'll be different amounts of time that we'll be delaying these things. Basically, our mutes, our rewinds, our stop, rewind, and play, functions over here, like everything has that as its potential delay. So as long as it waits this long before it rewinds, the sound should be fully off. So we're going to test that again by simply pressing play and leaving loop off. Okay, here's the test recording for the scrub feature. There we go. It rewound. We're at the beginning again. So we could play. Okay, here's the test recording loop for the scrub feature. Okay, here's the test recording for the scrub feature. Here's the test recording for the scrub feature. Here's the test recording for the scrub feature. Here's the test recording. 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 Here's the test record. Here's the test record. Here's the recording. Here's the test 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 recording. When I unchecked loop, it didn't keep going. It's like it stopped here. Should not have done that. But you know what? One other thing is, it's best to do this after starting things like it was a fresh patch. Because sometimes when you're patching things, values don't get received in places. So let's do that. Load bang like we're starting over. Let's record new audio so that we have a fresh starting point. Let's record new audio so that we have a fresh starting point. Let's record new audio so that we have a fresh starting point. New audio so that we have a fresh starting point. New audio so that we have a fresh starting point. New audio so that we have a fresh starting point. New audio so that we have a fresh starting point. New audio, new audio, new audio, new audio. So it stopped here rather than going the rest of the way. So let's check that out. Well, one thing I'm also going to do is I'm noticing these sliders, I think they all should be jump on click. It's just much easier. You see a point in the waveform here where it's like, I'd like to loop here and here. It's easier just to kind of click them into position. So I'm going to make these other two jump on click too. All right. Now, it looks like I keep saying one last thing, but yeah, this is just a check here to see what's going on. So when loop is released, here's where loop is being checked to see if we should rewind or not. If loop is unchecked, we don't rewind. But what's stopping it from going all the way to the duration? Because with the float here, it looks like this whole method, I was trying to be efficient, but it looks like it's not working as well as we had it before. Let me put it back to the way we had it before. And just see if that's where the problem was. We're going to put it back the way it was before and see if that's where the problem is, because it would be nice to be able to just release loop and have it just go to the end and then stop. Okay. We'll see there. Looks like we could take the float out of here now. I mean, it is stopping and rewinding, so this gets executed, but it's getting executed at the wrong time. Let's see. But, you know, it was working before the way it was. Let's record new audio, new audio, new audio, new audio. No. So basically, when the loop goes off here, all right, I think this is what we're going to have to do. Okay, I am going to disconnect this again and put it back the way we were just doing it. Because I think what we're going to have to do because up here, what we're receiving is whether loop is on or off. That gets tested when we receive when it reaches wherever the right slider is, the end of the loop. And if it loops on, it executes this. We should probably have something done if it's not on. Like when it reaches that point and it's not on, Well, if nothing happens, it should just keep playing. It does when we don't start the loop, but when we turn it off, no, I mean, I think this is better having, wait a minute, this is still running. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm going to pause for a moment and rejoin you as soon as I have a few ideas here. I want to see which one works best. Okay, I am back after pausing. And what I basically did is we have one Moses now. Just keep the top one with all the stuff that's been hooked up to its left inlet. Keep it going straight down to the star, the multiplier below it. Now, I've deleted the rest of the mechanisms in between. However, the stop and rewind is here, and the loop functions are here, and they're the same as before. I have not changed them. I just got rid of stuff in between because I'm going to build a different way of doing these determinations. What I will do is move this Moses down a little bit here. And now, might end up moving them down a little bit too. I don't know. Well, let's see. Here's the thing that I want to do. I want to just use one Moses. That will eliminate a lot of confusion. There's two things we need to have happen. We need to know if loop is on, and if loop is on, the loop R is what we want Moses to determine things by. Okay? Now, I'm going to disconnect that, but position it up there. If the loop is off, we want Moses to determine things by duration. But at the same time, not only do we want those two options, if the loop is on, we want to use this side of functions. And if the loop is off, we want to use this side. So we need to have a determination system once again. And that means we have two things to be decided at the same time. So, okay, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to have a float box for each of these. This stores the number for both duration here and loop R receive, which is the end of the loop region. They're going to be stored here. Now, we're going to have a float box here. Well, no, not a float box. Hold on here. Let me think. We have ones and zeros here. basically loop on or off. So we're going to make a select one space 0. And I'm going to put you for now up here. I'll move you over so it doesn't look as cluttered. All right. So now, if loop is on, we want it to look at where this slider is positioned. If loop is off, we want it to look at duration. So select sending out a bang, whether it's a 1 or a 0, will send out either of these numbers based on what it is. And so Moses will look at, am I past this if loop is on, or am I past this if loop is off? Okay, so now what I'm going to do is try to move this over. Just so things look a little cleaner. All right, now that happens based on that. But now we're going to make a second one of these for here. Basically, we're going to have a, oh, I made an object and I attached it to the left outlet. Now, this is where it comes out. Trigger, bang. You don't need a number coming out. Trigger, bang. Basically, it means it's past one of these points. Now, how do we know which one of these to bang? Well, that is going to be determined by select responds to when a number comes in, tells it to go to 1 or 0. But we're going to have to do this a different way, slightly. I'm going to move this down. Now, we could put another one of these here. Right here. So that when 1 comes through, that means we want to bang this one. Maybe I'll move them. Exchange positions so it makes a little more sense. And then coming out of here, this may still change, but this is what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to use this number as a routing mechanism. And that means we're going to use the route object, but before that, I got to pack some things together. Now, yeah, because of the way pack works, I'm going to have to do this differently. I'm going to have to put a float here. Where the right inlet is going to receive the 1 or the 0. Okay. So what we're going to do here is make a trigger bang, bang, because we need an extra bang to execute something. So this is where whether looping is on or off is going to be stored. 1 and the 0 will both be stored here. It could be either 1, it could be either 0, but it's not determined until this happens. And that's when the 1 and the 0 will come out here. Oh, and actually I don't need to use route. Hold on here. We just need 1 bang here. So basically, whether this is 1 or 0, it is held off until Moses reaches its point. And then, which could be either this or this, based on the same criteria. And then it'll actually be sent out to be determined. So in other words, oh, actually, you don't need to select here. I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm tired. Basically, we want our loop function stored here. I'm sorry. There we go. So whether loop is on or off is stored, kind of like we've been doing all along, except it only gets determined when Moses reaches that point. So then it'll come out here. And then if it's a 1, we go through the loop routine. If it's a 0, we go through the rewind routine. Okay, so that should take care of that. Now, we may be all good. Our situation may just be fine now. To be honest with you, it might be best to have 1 point where this is determined. Well, not 1 point where it's determined, but no, we should be all right. We should be all right. Let's not go crazy with it. So now I'm going to save. I'm going to go into loading. I'm going to bang this, give us our initial properties. I'll record new audio. This is new audio to see if we can loop and then unloop and have it function properly. Now what I'm going to do is play it through straight, unchecked off for looping to see if that works. This is new audio to see if we can loop and then no, we're getting cut off. Here, let me just click loop and click it off again. Make sure there's stuff there. This is new audio to see if we can loop and then unloop and have it function properly. Aha. Probably this is what happened there. It stopped at a point it was at because these never received a 1 or a 0 to determine anything. So what we're going to probably have to do is go over here to loading. And when the patch opens up, even though the toggle box is unselected, by default when you open a patch up, this 0 doesn't necessarily get sent. So we have to send a 0 out to loop. Now we have a 0 here, so we can use that just to save a little bit of time. Send $0 underscore loop underscore receive. That's the receive of that toggle. But once it gets it, it will also send it right back out. So that way the toggle will be unchecked. Well, it's going to start off unchecked anyway, so we could say send it to loop send, which means that, okay, these receives here in PD playback, when the patch starts off, are going to be at 0. Now let's test it, make sure that works. We're going to clear things out. Let's record again and continue the debugging process. Let's record again and continue the debugging process. There we go. Now, you could have, oh yeah, it did turn off eventually. That's good. Let me see that again. Let's record again and continue the debugging process. Just took a while. I mean, that wasn't just a couple hundred milliseconds or anything. It took a while to turn that off. I'm going to make this real quick just to make sure. Delay 100 milliseconds. Like a tenth of a second, so. That's rewind. Oh, it's the first thing that happens here. Play receive gets turned off. I don't know. It's another mystery. I don't know why this wouldn't uncheck pretty quickly. But anyway, let's turn on loop. See if we loop. Let's record again and continue the debugging process. Let's record again and continue the debugging process. Again and continue the debugging process. Again and continue the debugging process. Record 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 again and continue. So now this slider's data should be the overriding factor when loop is checked off. So let's go here and see something. All right, loop is checked off. So one should be sent out here that had sent loop R send in as the number to Moses. The way I'm going to have to, come on, I'm going to have to do this. Make a number box here because we can't see what Moses has received. So we'll put a number box here to see that these numbers are being sent. Okay, now, what is the duration of this thing? We could look at the slider and see. Its max amount is 4.3. That's the duration. This is something that would be less than that. So we put this in loop. And then I go over here to playback again. And yeah, so Moses should have received 2.44. you know, which is a little over halfway through this thing. That's what should be inside Moses right now. So Moses should only trigger stuff based on that. And that's when it bangs this determination through. Are we looped or are we not? That's patched correctly. Let's play. Forward again and continue. Forward again and continue. Forward again. Now it's doing it. Continue. Forward again and 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 continue the debugging process. Okay, well, here's the thing. Let's record again. And here's the thing. When I move the slider, it was not continuing to adjust it. That's because these things are going into float boxes. And they're being stored there. It's not until you hit the loop button that it actually determines anything about them. I don't know that we need to have the loop button decide when when these get sent. Here, let's delete these floats. But we'll connect them up here too so we can see. Well, I mean, obviously. All right, let's see if this works. That should do it. All right. And continue the debugging process. Forward again and continue the debug. Forward again and forward again and continue the debug. Forward again and forward again and forward again and forward again. And then it stops. So that was the problem that led us to this point. It says once we're looping, and then you turn loop off. I know. I know. I know. Okay. So you see right here, this never got sent. And yeah, that's why I wanted the float boxes there to begin with. Okay. We're going to have it work both ways. You guys, when I change, you know, the duration slider, that needs to go through right away. I mean, the loop end slider, loop R as we're calling it, that needs to go through right away. Okay. Now this one, duration, well, the duration only gets sent immediately after recording. So we can have it stored here. Come on. Stored here. No. No, no. Let's have it come through. That's the thing. Well, these will be sending the same value essentially at first because loop R goes straight to whatever the duration amount is. So this can be stored. All right. But it is true. Copy you again. I'll just type it. It is true that when $0 underscore loop receive. When the loop receive does happen, like that gets checked on or off, we do want to select 1, 0 here to make sure at that moment these numbers do get banged through. So in other words, now when I unlock that or uncheck the loop toggle while things are playing back, it will bang this through. If I hit it again and turn it back on, it will bang this through. But if I hit it again, turn it back on, it'll bang this through. And so Moses will immediately be updated with its information. That's what was missing. Okay, so now loop, play. Let's record again, and 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 oh, for crying out loud. For crying out loud. That is... Because just unchecking that should have allowed the 0 here, this outlet, to bang this through and make sure that duration... Oh, well, I never gave it duration because remember, we didn't record. See, that's one of the things. That's why a lot of times I do record again. You've got to record again to refresh the audio to have duration actually be sent. You've got to record again to refresh the audio to have duration actually. You've got to record again to refresh the audio to have. You've got to record again to refresh the audio to have. And to refresh the audio to have. And to refresh the audio to have. And to refresh the audio to have. Oh. No. No. I gotta put the number box back in. I'm sorry about this, but this is definitely the last step. Just to figure this out. Gotta find out why at this point we're not getting... I should be able to release that loop and that duration should come into Moses, and therefore it doesn't stop right away. You know what I mean? It should play out to the rest of the duration. You've got to record again to refresh the audio to have... You've got to record again to refresh the audio to have... And to refresh the audio to have... And to refresh the audio to have... And to refresh the audio to have... Look here. See what our number box says. Our number box says 0. Is this typed properly? $0 underscore duration. Being stored here. When I release that loop receive, it should have banged out here. And put that number out, but I see a 0 going here. How the hell could duration be turning to 0? But instead of recording again, Let's go to playback. No, calculations. Here's where duration gets sent out. It's 5.2. How could it not be 5.2 here? See, the left inlet of float can take a bang as well as a number, and the number, it just sends right through. And then the bang just shoots that number right back out again. There's no reason why loop R should be a 0. There's no reason why a 0 should be ending up there, period. Here, like, let me just move this. And you see we get whatever time loop R was at. Now let me do this. Loop is on. Loop is off. We should be seeing duration appear here, which was 5.2 or something like that. That is a real mystery. I mean, this is where it gets ridiculous. I got to go down here and make sure, well, is the send symbol correct? $0 loop send. This is loop receive. Oh my God. That is the most, and I had it send down here. Oh. You've got to record again to refresh the audio to have duration. And 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 to refresh the audio to and to refresh the audio to and to refresh the audio to have duration actually be sent. Everything's working now. You've got to record again to refresh the audio to have duration. And to refresh the audio to 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 and to refresh and to refresh the audio to and to refresh the audio to refresh the audio to and to refresh the audio. And to refresh the audio again to refresh the audio. Got to record and to refresh the audio to all right, folks. Refresh the audio to and to refresh the audio to and to refresh the audio to have duration actually be sent. There we go, folks. It's working now. Alrighty. Longer one than I expected, but this is the last with the virtual tape looper. Next time we're going to be making a delay effect. And that'll be fun. Let me just take a screenshot here for the video. There we are. Thank you for joining me. Sorry for the long debugging process, but you know, that's for this season and the first 2 seasons where I build with you and you get to see all this stuff and you can learn about the debugging process and how you got to go through and find stuff. And just like tonight, it was just a real simple thing. I was trying to receive from a receive. It's trying to hear something come out of someone else's ear. You know what I mean? So it's like, alrighty. And so it takes some exploring and digging, and that's the way it goes. You follow your data flow. All right, thank you for joining me. Until next time, stay free and take care.